Well, welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you. I'm having some unexpected dinner guest, and luckily I keep some clams in my pantry for just such an occasion. So we're going to whip up some clam chowder, New England style. Here are your ingredients. And I have more than one recipe for clam chowder, and this is one for when I'm having a lot of people. And this is how you can feed a lot of people on short notice for pennies. Pause and write down the ingredients. And hey, if you like our video, please give us a thumbs up and share and subscribe. Let's get cooking. I'm melting half a stick of butter in my 5-quart enameled cast iron Dutch oven. And heads up, I make a mistake during this video, and I'll explain it to you so you don't make it. This is half a finely diced onion. You can do a whole mirepoix. It's not necessary. I'm going with just onion. And I'll add the salt and other seasonings at this time. So that's a healthy pinch of salt, probably half a teaspoonful. We've got lots of milk and broth in here, so we need plenty of salt. And the salt helps break down and sweat the onions. And if you choose to use a whole mirepoix at this point with the carrots and celery, make sure they're finely chopped. Here are the clams that I'm going to use. This is a 6-point-something ounce can, and I'm going to use 2 of these. You find this in the canned meat section in the grocery store unless you're lucky and have fresh. And we need some freshly ground black pepper. I usually use red pepper flakes instead of black pepper, but clam chowder, I think you need some black pepper. And freshly ground is always best. And this is my secret ingredient. I've got here about a teaspoonful of ground cumin. And boy, it adds a great flavor. I do recommend it. Now, a lot of folks use a bay leaf or some seafood seasoning. I don't. I just like the flavor of the cumin and the salt and the pepper. And if you've never tried cumin in clam chowder, I suggest you try it at least once. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to put in my red pepper flakes too. Totally optional. So now I'm going to add the clams, and this is the mistake I referenced. I should have added the flour before the clams, because now I'm going to have to fight lumps. And if I had added the flour first, then I wouldn't have to fight lumps. I did win the battle with the lumps, but just for your reference, add the flour before the clams, because the liquid in the clams makes it difficult. I'm using 6 tablespoons full of flour. I'll add it now because this has gotten hot. Got the bubbles. And I'll have to stir a lot more than usual because I should have added the flour before the clams. But this is a no bad consequence error, so we'll just soldier on. If you're gluten intolerant, you can use cornstarch instead of flour. And we're just going to stir this well, add the flour kind of slowly. Let me tell you that my other clam chowder recipe, which is smaller and doesn't have the chicken broth, is in my cooking group, Cooking from Scratch on Debbie's Back Porch, where we have thousands of recipes, usually originals from our members. And I will post that link in the info section so you can join. So when the flour is all dissolved and you work out the lumps, which you wouldn't have if you put the flour in before the clams, we're going to add a quart of whole milk. And depending on what you have in your fridge and how rich you want this, you could do half milk and half cream, or you can use half and half. But whole milk does a nice rich chowder. And now a quart of chicken broth, and this is actually my turkey bone broth. Not everyone puts broth in their clam chowder, and the recipe I just referenced in my group does not have broth, but it does add a wonderful richness of flavor, and it doubles your yield. Now, 2 large pre-cooked potatoes. I threw these in the microwave. You could use leftover baked potatoes. You could even boil them, but we're not going to use that potato water. By the way, the flour or cornstarch that I put in here is not going to be enough to make this thick. It'll give it a little extra body. It'll add a little silkiness, but this is not going to be a thick chowder. If you want yours thick, double the flour or cornstarch. Now we taste for seasonings, and my broth was not salted, So I'm pretty sure I'm going to need a little bit more salt. And always taste at this point with your food. You know, I'm a believer that if you salt your food while it's cooking, people won't use salt at the table. And that way they'll have overall less sodium intake, if that's important to you. And it is to most of us. And I think I'm going to add a little more cumin. All that milk, all that broth, a little more seasoning won't hurt. And you know, if you want a bay leaf, if you put a bay leaf in earlier, you're probably going to want to take it out now. And some people like a little touch of Old Bay, and this would be the time for that. Now I'm just going to let it simmer a little. It doesn't have to simmer long because everything in it is already cooked. But if you let it simmer a little bit, it's going to get a silky texture to it. And I'm going to plate this up and try it before my guests come. You know, quality control. So when I serve it, I get a big scoop of the veggies, maybe a little bit more, and a big scoop of the juice, the broth and milk mixture. And I'll garnish this and put it on the table. Let's eat. I'm garnishing with a little paprika because, hey, you know, this was short notice. But if I have it, I really like to garnish with some finely chopped tops of green onions. That makes it really pretty. So here is the texture we have. I'm going to get a big old clam and I'm going to get a potato and do some quality control here. This is really wonderful, by the way, and the little bit of cumin adds a different flavor than is traditional, but I think you'll love it. I love the depth of flavor that cumin brings, especially when you're using broth. I hope you try this. I hope you like it. This is a great dinner for a nasty winter afternoon. It's ugly outside. You need something to warm your insides, and this will do it. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch. Hope to see you again tomorrow.